Ladies and gentlemen, I'm impelled to appear once again to give you an update as I promised. I had this very riveting, this very important conversation with somebody I will describe as one of my closest associates just yesterday. And I hope my own assessment of the conversation will be similar to the way this individual that I have a lot of respect for will also see it. The conversation involved religion, and you know, when we tackle religious issues, we cannot avoid being emotional. I believe I was emotional, and I believe this individual was emotional too, because the matter concerned what we believe in. We were looking at the personality of the Almighty God. That, by the way, scholars who don't relax have begun to probe at the possibility that his name is connected to this Igbo term for God, Chi Ukwu. We were looking at the personality of this God. And as for today, I don't know what this individual thinks of this personality of the Almighty God, but this individual that I have a lot of respect for pointed at a passage that concerns our father Abraham, about how 3 individuals visited Abraham. And I think this individual understood that one of the individuals was God. I didn't need to know why this person would put up this, because this person is inclined to believe that a figure that some religions have called God was actually the personification of this true God. Because I thought that I had left all this behind 20 years ago in Nigeria, I wasn't as patient as I should have been. I'm a lawyer. Fortunately, this individual is also a lawyer. So it's very, very easy for us to detect lies, to detect falsehood. This individual that some religions gave their accoutrement God was also said to be the only son of God. It's very, very easy for lawyers to know that something is wrong, that something wrong is going on. In Exodus 4:22, God himself said who was his first son. Israel was his first son. Any passage after Israel that talks about any other person as first son of God, we take it that that passage has a problem. And if you say the only son of God, you have a problem with Exodus 4:22, which says that Israel is the first son of God. And I don't want to hear about spiritual or physical son. But I wasn't patient to bring out all this. But then I began to think very carefully about that passage that talks about 3 strangers visiting Abraham and one of them being God. I thought very carefully about it. And the only thing I could think about now, because I went back to read it, was the people, the individuals that redacted, summarized the Torah. They did a wonderful job of work. But I think we would be negligent if we assume that they wrote down everything, that they wrote down the entire history of mankind. No. They wrote down very important aspects of it that they had as traditions. They wrote down some that the prophets mentioned to them, The ancestors discussed with them, but they did not get. They couldn't have. And what do I think? Abraham and Sarah had the voice of God as these individuals were in their tents. But we are these three individuals who were humans, God, they were not. There is one individual that my coming to America has made it difficult for me to reconnect with. I'll mention his name because who knows, he may see this video and reconnect to me. Patrick Ugwanye from the Nsukka part of Igbo land has a master's degree in religious studies from the famous University of Nigeria, Nsukka. The two of us and friends started one of the first Obi or synagogues in Abuja. One day I asked Patrick, these people of Israel are tiny people. Why do everybody in the world, when I said everybody, I meant Christians and Muslims, look up to them for religious truths? Patrick showed that he actually studied religion and that he's extremely smart, as Americans would say. Patrick said, in antiquity, these tiny people were able to think of a supreme being that the eyes could not see. One, according to Patrick, it shows a certain genius. Two, it shows that they came very close to that true God that we all want to believe is the Father of all. Because assuming that that God appeared in the form of an Igbo who happens to be a descendant of Levites, who also has Judahite background, who is a lawyer, who has a PhD in religious studies, who is talking to you now. Every Igbo will look at every other person in the world as inferior. So what did that God do? He hid himself. I think this should satisfy us. And then going forward, because one of the things that came up yesterday was, what is the status of Omenana? And what is the status of the written Torah? Every day I see more and more compelling evidence that you can't do without one of them. You cannot do without Omenana. You cannot do without Torah. Torah has been my favorite companion for over 20 years. I mean, non-stop. When I walked through the valley of the shadow of death, I was studying my Torah. When I was going from hospital to hospital, I was reading my Torah. And every day, I see why it is the greatest book written. And every day, I see the value of Omenana as the oldest tradition of Israel. The Igbo community, the Ashkenazi Jewish community, the Sephardi Jewish community, the Mizrahi Jewish community, the Beta Israel of Ethiopia, formerly called the Falasha, they see suicide as abomination. Go very carefully through the Torah, through the prophets, through the wise sayings. You would not find this tradition clearly etched. You will only realize that the writers knew about a tradition of Israel which forbade one taking one's life. If you know Omenana. Because the exact word you will find in even the English translations of the Torah, a hanged person is a curse. Hanged is the Igbo word for committing suicide. But the writers, or rather the people that recorded the Torah, Remember, they did not record the Torah exactly as everything was going on. So, they were humans. They got the bare essence, but they follow up. For the follow up, you have to look at Omenana to understand it. And all this boils down to what? One of those that spoke for Omenana defenders, a Haitian American lady who has a degree in religious studies. It boils down to what she said yesterday. You cannot understand Torah without understanding Omenana. And you cannot get the best of Omenana without studying it side by side with Torah. This would not be appreciated now, but like everything good, it will ultimately be appreciated. Take my words, it will ultimately be appreciated. And on this note, I want to say, have a pleasant day. By the grace of the Almighty Chukwu, this ain't gonna stop until he looks at us as he looked at Elijah and said, my children, take a rest. I was impelled to talk because this individual that I had this discussion with yesterday, I see this individual as a partner in progress. I see this individual as a hurricane, as somebody who has a lot to contribute. We would have our differences, but we will continue working together as long as we all acknowledge that we are all under the only true God called Chi Ukwu. Thank you.